Hello everybody, and I want to talk this evening about the issue of prepping. There are people that prep, and they're often termed doomsday preppers. And what are doomsday preppers? They're people that gather food, supplies, sort of medical supplies, survival supplies, general survival items, and food, very important. And they would also maybe have a shelter um, underground or and a plan of action, maybe a bug out location, etc. So that's what a doomsday prepper is, and there's a lot of people that do it. And what are their reasons for doing it? They're doing it for a possible doomsday scenario. There are a lot of doomsday scenarios that could happen. There's like 1,000 different options. You've got the possibility of a supervolcano, a collision from a space object, asteroid or meteorite, comet, whatever. Um, you know, Unlikely, but it can happen. It's happened before. It wouldn't be the first time. A solar storm, a huge solar storm, knock out the power grid. But any one of these things, an epidemic, by the way, I think personally that's a more likely one. I think that's quite likely. But there's been massive events in the past, and there have been extinction level events in the past as well. The dinosaurs is a prime example. Okay, so these things are all possible. Okay, but what's worse than the event itself is the aftermath. You take, for example, the power grid going. That happened last time in the 1800s from a solar storm, and it was the 1800s. The Earth wasn't as populated. The human race wasn't so reliant upon electricity, so it recovered, and life went on. Can you imagine if that happened now? It would it would be a huge thing. I mean, we're so reliant on electricity, but that's not what this video is about. What I want to talk about is doomsday prepping. Now, the people that prep for doomsday are often ridiculed, and because they think, people say, you're one of these like chicken little persons. This guy's going to fall on your head. You're paranoid, blah blah blah. And it's not really, because with so many possible scenarios that could unfold, and the Earth is so unstable these days. And by the way, we're only talking about natural things. I mean, what about man destroying himself? That's a big threat. In fact, that's probably a greater threat than nature. Um, okay, so this with so many different possibilities, what's the odds of one possibility happening someday in the future, right? To put it vaguely, well, the odds are 100%. And I'm not a mathematician, but if you give enough time, then yeah, of course, something will happen. Will it happen in your lifetime? I don't know. Nobody knows. We'll have to wait and see. And I hope not. Okay, but of course it's possible. But I want to talk about prepping, because prepping needn't be for doomsday scenarios only. Okay, I want to put a different spin, a different perspective on this. I believe that we all ought to be prepping, but it needn't necessarily be called doomsday prepping. Okay, I want to talk about your retirement, my retirement, your retirement, right? Let's talk about money. Okay, let's talk about the economy. Let's talk about where we're at. Let's talk about patterns in recent history. Okay, so money is losing its value, and the cost of living is rising. Life is getting harder and harder. Incomes aren't rising, but prices are rising. So people have less disposable income. People are struggling more than they ever have. We now in modern history have got a scenario where husband and wife both work. Okay, it's no longer the old-fashioned, the man goes out to work, the woman raises the children. That still does happen, but a lot of families are finding that's impossible. Um, there's like people are doing like two jobs. People are doing overtime. We are indeed a slave race. That's another subject. But yeah, I mean, we are finding life tough these days. And what about pensions? What about retirement? Okay, now a doomsday scenario is possible, but not 100% possible within your lifetime. Alright? You can decide for yourself what percentage-wise, how likely a doomsday scenario will be. Okay, but one thing that we can all agree on is that we all grow old and we all need to retire at some stage. There's many people that believe that they have to work until they die, that there's no peace for the wicked, you can't retire because it's not affordable. You won't be able to survive on the state pension or even your private pension, and it's just not possible. So you have to just work until you die. A lot of people have that attitude these days. A lot of people are actually doing that. I know so many people that are working well past the government retirement age, and that's not going to change. The pensions that we get are just not going to be realistic. So, with that said, if we do some prepping, the very thing that we're embarrassed to do because of the stigma and the ridicule that's attached to it, if we do some prepping, it needn't necessarily be for a doomsday scenario. If there's a doomsday, it's a bonus. Obviously, I don't mean that, but I think you get my point. It means that you're prepared and that you can survive. Okay? But if there's not, 100% guaranteed you're going to get old, you're going to find it difficult to work, and you're going to find things very difficult financially. So, that leads us to this. What should you do? Well, there's two options. Acquire as much money as you possibly can so that you are well prepared for your retirement, or alternatively, acquire things. Okay? Now, if you acquire money, I put it to you that the money that you acquire, though you may think it's substantial and will be very useful in your retirement, and it obviously depends on whoever's listening, what age you are currently and how close you are to retirement, and by the way, have you got money to save? Because I don't know about you, but I don't. All my money goes to bills. I don't have any money to save. Nothing to speak of. So what am I going to have when I retire if I start putting whatever spare money I have away now? Not very much. Okay. But let's suppose you've got a reasonable amount to put away and you start saving up money and you think it's a reasonable amount. Let's use a figure of £100. Okay. Think in terms of dollars if you're watching this and you're American. Okay, but think of an amount of money and what that money is worth now. Now that money is worth far less than what it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So £100 was a lot of money like 20, 30 years ago. It'd be like, whoa, I've got £100. Now £100 is like, I've got £100. Get you a few things. Okay, in 10 or 20 years from now, it's going to be like, oh, I've only got £100. Do you know what I mean? You see where I'm going with this, okay? So money is losing its value. Any amount of money is getting you less and less. I mean, they say that to be a millionaire, right? If you're a millionaire, if you have £1 million, you're not really like a millionaire. What a millionaire was considered to be like many years ago. They say, right? I've heard that to live like a millionaire, a person who had £1 million like many, many years ago, you'd need like £11 million to be equivalent. Okay? So £1 million, I mean, you get yourself a house and a car, I mean, what change have you got? Not a lot of change. You can't really give up work if forever get £1 million. Okay. So money is a funny old thing. It's not, as the years go on, it becomes less and less valuable, and it flitters away. It goes. They say money talks. It says goodbye. That's what. It's very true. Okay, but things, however, right? If you buy things, and I'm not talking about cheap things that break, but if you buy things, reasonable things, it's useful. Okay, and it will last you. So if you acquire things instead of money, that will be useful in later life. Okay? So, yes, food that obviously, use some intelligence, food that is going to be still edible in the future, and there is many, you'll be surprised. Check it out for yourself. You can buy food now that you can eat in 20 years, no problem. Yes, we need a little bit of education. We can acquire food. We can acquire survival, everyday, useful, practical items, okay, that we can utilize when the money runs out, okay? And if you do that, no one can ridicule you. Don't let anyone ridicule you, because it's guaranteed that you'll be glad you acquired them. It's got nothing to do with doomsday. Nothing to do with doomsday whatsoever. You will use them, you will utilize them in your life, and it'll be of more use to you than any amount of money, unless we're talking about a massive amount of money. Right? If we're talking about a mediocre amount of money, it's not going to be very much use to you as things. So, in conclusion, think things and not money.